Today I will explain to you as simple as possible how the MOC 12 enemies work of MOC 3.2, which will also carry over to like half of version 3.3. So let's start with the first enemy we got, and that is Pollux, aka Netherwing Husk. When we start the battle we see this, and the most important thing here is that we want to lose HP. But why do we want to lose HP? Well, the more HP we lose, the more this percentage of Pollux will go up. And our aim is to get this to 100%. And the reason for that is when its charge is 100%, then this thing right here will go away. And why do we want to have this thing go away? Well, this thing says that Pollux will have 90% damage reduction. And we don't want to have that, of course. That's why when we charge this thing to 100%, when it is purple, then this will go away, so that we can start doing damage to Pollux. And luckily for us, it charges quite fast, due to the attacks of Pollux and its branches. But if you, for example, use Castores, who consumes the HP of their teammates, then with like one skill of Castores, it would have already been charged to close to 100%. But if you don't have a character in team who consumes their own HP or their teammates' HP, then we just got to wait here and wait until Pollux and its branches attacks us and reduce our HP to charge its percentage. So then it will be a small waiting game. But luckily for us, they do quite some nice damage, since when Pollux attacks us, we get this debuff right here. And what this debuff says is this. It is a dot, but the more HP we have, the more damage that dot will do. But luckily for us, that damage is non-fatal. So it cannot kill us. So the more HP we have, the more dot damage we get, the faster this thing will get to 100% then. Which is helpful if you don't have a character in our team who consumes their own or their teammates' HP. And luckily for us, there's also another way that Pollux and its branches can do lots of damage to us to lose HP ASAP. And that is that when Pollux attacks and we have more than a certain percentage amount of HP, then we will get something called atrophy damage, which is basically a fixed amount of damage. And this fixed damage it does to our characters cannot be blocked by shields, so no Aventuring shield for example, the damage will still go through, and damage distribution effects from our allies, so for example Fusan cannot absorb this atrophy damage for an ally. So it's a fixed damage that will always go through if the attacked ally of yours has more than a certain percentage amount of HP. And that exact percentage doesn't really matter. All we need to know is from this is that the more HP we have, the more dot damage we will get, and you will get this atrophy damage, which is fixed damage that will always go through, which will help us to charge this charge thing of Pollux ASAP, so we can go to the next part of this fight. But before that, Pollux can also enhance its branches, and what this enhancement basically does is that this branch now can also do this atrophy damage, which is a blast attack. And to know whether a branch is enhanced or not, he will be like glowing more purple, pinkish, and it will like have butterflies on the side, which you can see in the next part of this fight, which will look something like this. A branch will look like this. This means the branch is enhanced, so it will do more damage. That's all you need to know. But alright, now we know we want to lose HP ASAP in this part of the fight, when this thing is like purplish, and when it is 100%, Pollux will lose that damage reduction buff he has. Then we will go to the next part of the fight, where this thing goes from purple to pink, which is seen right here. And as you can see, our allies will get this weird sword on our head. But before we go deeper, you might have noticed that when we go into this phase of the fight, all your allies will have like 1 HP. All their HP would have been reduced because of that big attack that Pollux will do. So everyone will start with 1 HP and will have this sword on their head. The most important thing you want to do right now is when you see you have 1 HP is heal as much as possible, because this sword you have on your head makes it so that the less HP you have, the less damage you will do. So our aim is now to make sure we heal our ally to 50% or more of their HP to dispel this damage reduction, so to get rid of the sword on our head. And you need to make sure that of course your DPS gets rid of that sword on their head ASAP, so that they can now start dealing damage fully to the enemy. And we want to deal lots of damage to the enemy now, especially because the more damage you'll deal to the enemy, the more of this percentage he will lose. And if this percentage gets to 0, then first, all our allies will restore HP, which is always appreciated. But the most interesting thing is that the enemy now will get a big chunk of damage, which is like around 12%. And we want to do this ASAP because every time Pollux gets its turn, at the end of the turn of his speed will increase. So he will become faster and faster, which may result in survivability issues for you. And the interesting thing about this part of the fight is, when this thing is glowing pink, that every time we attack an enemy, all our allies will like heal for a little bit. Almost neglectable, but still appreciated. And then the question arises, what happens when we get his percentage to 0 now? Well, we will go back to this part of the fight. So this thing will become more purple and it will reset to 0. But luckily for us, he will not have this damage reduction then. So we can just burst him down. So we can continue dealing damage to him without worries. And then when we get to the second phase of the battle, so when we have reduced his HP to 0, then he will get this damage reduction buff back again. So we need to lose HP ASAP to make sure that we go to his enhanced state like this. But when he goes into this state, it will be a bit different since now his toughness will be locked. So it is now even more important for us to deal as much damage as possible to reduce this to 0 to unlock his toughness. But if we do not manage to get his percentage to 0 and he gets a turn, which as you can see, he is glowing red. If he gets a turn when he's glowing red in the second phase, then he will do like a big AoE attack to us. And it isn't that big of a problem. It will become a problem when we still have a sword on our head. Since when we have a sword on our head and he does this big attack when he is glowing red, then this attack will be way stronger. Since, first of all, of course it will do more damage, but also delay our action and it has a chance to entangle us. So as you can see, removing these swords on our head is really important in the second phase to make sure that his charging attack doesn't hit as hard. So we need to do lots of consistent big attacks to him to reduce his percentage to 0, so his toughness gets unlocked and he doesn't get the chance to do his big AoE attack. But Pollux isn't the only enemy in the MOC 12, since we also have the second node with these robots. What happens in this fight? Well, the first thing you might notice are these red glowing things beside their head and the grey ones. Well, when they are glowing red, it means that when you attack a robot, that they cannot become happy. And when they are grey, they can become happy when you attack them, if they were angry. But if they were happy and you attack them, they do not turn angry. But why do we want to have them happy to begin with? Well, when this robot is happy and he gets a turn, he will action advance your whole team. But if he is angry and he gets a turn, he will action advance all the enemies instead. For this enemy, when he is happy, he will give energy to one ally of yours. But if he is angry and he gets a turn, he will reduce the energy of all allies and do a bit of damage. And then what will the dino do? He will increase the attack of all your allies, but then he will switch immediately to the angry state. And as you can see, he has 2 actions in a turn, the same as with all other enemies. After they have become happy, they will turn to unhappy, but they won't do anything that turn. But for the dino, he will make sure that he and some other enemies will get this red glowing thing. And as we know, that will make sure that when we attack an enemy, that they cannot become happy. So that is how enemies get these red bars. And then the question arises, how do we make sure that they do not do their angry thing to us, since we cannot make them happy? Well, the only solution is to weakness break them, to make sure that they do not their angry ability to us. But if the dino was angry and he gets a turn, then he will just do some attacks which can like burn you and slow you. That's it. And then we got the last enemy. What he will do is give you 2 skill points, and when he is angry, he will take away 1 skill point from you. That's it. So as you can see, we want to make sure that the enemies get a turn and they are happy to help us. But if they are grayed out, that means we can make them happy and they will stay happy if we attack them. So favorably consistent AoE attacks is the way to go here, since they also have all shared HP due to these chain images. They can also of course raw bug it with Face Shower, Cello or wherever you got. But the guideline is AoE attacks or blast attacks with Firefly. But things get really interesting in the second phase, since as you might have noticed, this monkey comes in the action bar. And when this monkey gets a turn, bad things will happen, since it will dispel all enemies their crowd control, so their CC, their weakness broken state, and all enemies will get an attack bonus on top of that. Plus, they all become angry. On top of all of that, they all will do like this big AoE attack on you, which has a chance to slow you, a chance to burn you, and it will guaranteedly reduce all your allies' energy and consume 1 skill point on top of that. So basically, when this monkey gets a turn, it will hit quite hard. So how do we make sure that he does not get a turn, or at least have an impact to slow him down? Well, every time you weakness break an enemy, his action will be delayed. That means consistently weakness breaking the enemies will push him down a bit in the action bar, delay this big AoE attack of his. But these are not the only enemies in this node, since we also have the first wave. And these enemies are pretty simple, since this enemy, his attacks will like always have a chance to enkindle you, which is like a fire dot you can say. And that when he is like growing red a bit like this with the flames, that the next attack he will do will be a bounce attack, which will bounce 5 times. So that means many of your characters can get this enkindle on you. And how do we make sure he doesn't do this bounce attack? Well, if you just weakness break him, he will go out of the state. And thing is, when he does this bounce attack of his, if you did not manage to weakness break him, he will get this like attack buff on him, which can be dispelled when you weakness break him. The takeaway is for this enemy, make sure you weakness break him consistently. And then we got this enemy in the middle. What he does is that he consumes his own HP and then he summons these small soldiers on the field. And when he does that, he gets this thing around him, which basically says that every time he attacks, he will heal with an attack. So how do we make sure we remove this thing around him so that he does not heal with his attacks? Well, first of all, you can just directly remove this buff on him since it's a buff. So with, for example, Pella, her skill, or Lucha, his ultimate, you can remove this ring around him so that he does not heal. The other way is that you need to make sure that you kill both of these soldiers just once, since they have a buff that when they die, that they will revive. If they do not have this revive buff on them anymore, then this thing will go away from the main soldier. So there are two ways to remove this buff on him. Just directly dispel his buff, for example Pella, or kill all the small soldiers once to dispel that revive buff on them. Or just a Lucha ultimate, which will remove all the buffs on them. So they won't have any revive anymore, and he won't have that ring anymore, but that won't matter since there is no revive soldiers to begin with. And with that all in mind, I want you to remember one thing though. You can play with Cypher in this MOC. The last day of this MOC is on Sunday the 22nd of June, and Cypher will come out on the 11th of June, with the highest scene on the 21st of May. But if you're still unsure whether you want to summon for Cypher or not because you want to know what Painon, Archer or Saber does, well, on the 20th of June, the 3.4 livestream is to be expected around that time, so you can make a more educated decision then. And on the 17th of June, the 3.5 drift marketing is to be expected around that time. So with that in mind, you can make a more educated decision whether you want someone for Cypher or not, since I have seen her banner will be gone by then. But my point is basically that you still have a lot of time to clear this MOC. There is no need to make haste, with all the time, just do what you want. All that means is that you have fun. So I thank you for paying attention. See you next time. Bye.